Okay.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Although it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here and it's so dark, I'm like getting ready to go to bed.
All right, so we're excited you guys are here. You got an awesome topic for you today. And yeah, and this is something that every HR professional runs into, like throughout their entire career. There is no moving around it. You're just gonna run into it, and we're gonna help kind of get you guys how to think through it. But it's going to be hard for you to go backwards to do anything about it. So
right.
we're just going to give you a teaser there. And look, before we get started, first off, we want to welcome everybody who is part of the HR club here in Clubhouse. We're happy to have you. Congratulations. Thank you for being literally one of the participant in the largest HR club in Clubhouse that is in the United States. There's one that's a little bit bigger. It's actually over in the Middle East, but I think we're catching up to them by like 500 people or something like that. So that's completely awesome. And we've got a link for you guys that we're posting up on the very, very top. And Suzanne and I, we alternate our links every week. And this week is the announcement of the Brenda, the HR lady app.
Yay!
It's cool. There's a lot of really great information. If you click the link on up above, or if you just go to brendathehrlady.com, you can go ahead and download it. There's a couple of different goodies inside of it. A lot of the content that is in there is free. So you just have to select the basic plan, which is the free plan. So have fun with that.
If you guys super have cool.
Suggestions, by all means, go ahead and hit me up. But you basically have quite a bit of really great information at your fingertips. So yeah, almost Merry Christmas.
Almost Merry Christmas. We are in December and we have almost survived another COVID year.
Yet another year.
But we're not talking about that, and we should ban COVID from today. But we're talking about, it sounds boring, but I swear it's not, is documenting paperwork. And when you mess up, it makes your life really, really miserable. So here's the thing, you can't lie. And writing something down doesn't make it true. You often hear HR people saying, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. But writing something down and documenting it doesn't make it happen either. You actually have to do the truth on things. And sometimes you run into situations where you don't really know what to say. For instance, let's say you want to terminate somebody. And why do you want to terminate them? And this can be kind of a difficult thing to document and write down. But what's the right thing to write down, Brenda?
The facts and the truth.
The truth. Even if that makes you look dumb. And here's the thing. If you're not willing to stand up for the truth in court, then the reason you're doing this is not correct, and you should change what you are doing. That's writing something down doesn't make it true, and employees are prone to come back if you write down that the reason that you're terminating somebody is A, and they can show that that's not the reason. The courts tend to then think that it wasn't some innocuous B, it was something illegal, and then you'll be in the hot seat.
So let's give you some context here real quick so you understand where we're coming from. So this subject today came up as the result of a post that took place in my group. And if she's listening, just know that this is a great learning opportunity. We're not picking on you or anything like that. This is perfect, right? Because this happens all the time. It happens all the time in small business, particularly. It can happen in large business. Nobody is immune to what we're about ready to share with you. So she wrote a post down. She's like, listen, we have, X number of employees here in California. California, we know, is a difficult state to, employee law through anyway. And she's like, listen, we need to terminate this person. My boss wants me to write this, make a statement inside of his termination letter so that way he can't sue us. And we're kind of like, okay, can you give us a little bit more information? And long story short, they had hired this guy who's got to be a driver. He's got challenges with his driver's license in the past. Ultimately, what led up to the dismissal is that because he had a high excess number of points while he was driving for the company, it came back that unbeknownst to them, he had a couple of other instances off the clock that racked up his points. And so the insurance agencies, here's the thing about insurance agencies, when you have a fleet, they don't do this all the time, but they will periodically run everybody's driver's license through the DMV to see and be a watch guard for things like, did they get any DUIs that haven't been reported? Did they get the license revoked? Because an insurance company is not going to insure somebody who's not a safe driver or doesn't have a driver's license or has had it revoked or has a criminal record associated now to it, like a DUI, hit and run, things like that. They take them off immediately because they are such a high liability. Right. And guess what? Insurance companies aren't profitable when they are paying out claims. That's just how it works. So that was this instance here. The company with the best of intentions wanted to help this guy out, wanted to give him a chance. They needed a driver. And so the two relationships, quote unquote, kind of married, right? Well, they got the word back from the insurance agency that they are not going to insure him, but that's the only job that he's qualified for at their company. So they went to terminate him. So basically what they said in this post was like, yeah, my boss wants us to write something down so that he can't come back and sue us. And it's like, okay, so, there's a lot of things to unpack here. And that was one of the comments, and they're actually absolutely right. So in this instance, it doesn't start with the termination, it starts with the hiring. They made a decision and they took a risk at the hiring.
Right. And they took that risk. They knew that he had a sketchy driving record. They went ahead and did it anyway. And that's okay if you want to take that risk, but you got to know it's a risk, and you need to be really clear with your employee that, part of this job requires that our insurance company will cover you. And so if you don't, you're out on your ear. It's one thing, we talk about employment at will in the US, and people always portray that as, my boss woke up in a bad mood and just decided to fire everybody. That's just not how it works. Right. But sometimes people are like, oh, well, we'll just do whatever and then we'll fire. Well, yeah, but like I said, when you're trying to hide something, just having the boss say, try to come up with a reason why they won't sue it. No, you don't try to come up with a reason where you don't sue it. You write down the actual reason. And here, the actual reason is a legit reason. The company won't, the insurance company won't cover. That's not something to be scared of. But for some reason, people want to come up with something different. And I see this where people haven't documented along the way, and now they want to terminate, and they're like, well, put down poor performance. Well, if you have no documentation of poor performance, even if it's true that the person had poor performance, if you don't put down in your documentation that, then a court assumes that you've done something illegal, that you were saying poor performance, but it was really race, gender, or whatever. And that's when you get your behind handed to you.
And they're going to expose that. They're going to dig into that viciously. And so are the attorneys. So, you have to position yourself really well. And so in this case, what I'm about ready to share with you is relatively kind of simple. So if you're making a hiring decision and you're trying to help somebody out who has kind of a sketch past, and then something happens where you have to release that person, there's nothing that you can put in a termination letter that eliminates them from their ability to file lawful complaints against their unwaivable rights. Now, sometimes in a termination letter, some companies will say, you know, we will go ahead and, you know, if you agree to not pursue this issue any further, the specific issue any further, and usually there's a lot of seriousness around this, we will go ahead and, you know, pay you a higher separation package. And that's not uncommon. I've done it for very specific reasons. I don't do it for every reason, but there are some reasons that we've done it in the past. But even though you can do that, an employee has unwaivable rights. And one of those rights is that there's nothing that can prohibit them or prevent them from filing against you for a discrimination claim, because that is an unwaivable right.
And that's something that you need to be aware of. And in this case, by trying to cover up their own bad hiring choice or whatever, they put themselves at risk far more than if they just said, honestly, look, the guy got a DUI or too many speeding tickets or whatever that is. Just stick to honesty. And if honesty won't hold up in court, then you are doing the wrong thing. And that's just something that you have to keep in mind. If honesty doesn't hold up in court, then you're on the wrong side. And it's just not worth it. Let's be honest and don't write down things that aren't true.
Yeah. And this is where, like, if you've ever listened to us in the past, we start talking about the difference between objectivity and subjectivity. When people are starting to write down their opinions about how the employee was behaving, that's subjective, because we look at what's going on in the world through our filter and our individual worldview. However, if we write down what we observe and the behaviors that are coming out of observation, then yes, in fact, that tends to hold more weight, because it's something that likely you can back up either with a witness, documented conversation, and those things now align vertically with your company core values, your policies, you know, your prior behaviors. Even if you don't have a policy or if you don't have a handbook, it's, let's take a look at what you've done consistently over the last several years, because those things actually do matter.
And they do. What you have done in the past matters a lot. And this is one of the reasons why it's really important to have HR involved in every termination, because you want the company to be consistent. And yes, it's possible to argue that, well, this manager does this and that manager does that, and it's fine. But it's so much easier if you, as a company, have a policy and you have one point of approval for all of these things. Then you can make sure that everything is on the up and up, and you don't have to be worried and you don't have to defend yourself, because it may be two managers that don't have any interaction with each other, but one terminates someone of one race and another of another race, and the circumstances were completely different, and so you get yourself into trouble. Whereas if you have an on the ball HR, they can make sure that that everything is good, you know.
Yep. So
that you're consistent.
yeah, and there's a lot to this. I mean, this isn't necessarily anything that is short, right? A lot of this takes analysis. A lot of this takes a lot of digging in. It also takes quite a bit of not moxie, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but the word I am looking for is actually, it takes processing. It takes time to think through. It takes time to really kind of dig deep into the full scope of the problem. And if you're reluctant to do that, or if you're getting pushback on this, you know what? Here's a really great phrase that you can use. If somebody says, no, I don't think we need to go into this, and you know that there's a wide opening, that you guys haven't yet closed that gap, because the gaps are what's going to get you into trouble, right? Gaps are where you leave yourself exposed. That's, that's like, sitting on a bench with your pants pulled down to your ankles. People may not necessarily realize that, your cheeks are touching that wood, but man, when you stand up, people are going to see how exposed your backside is, right? And I know that's a funky analogy, but for those of you who are tuning out, I have your attention now. So listen up. So you have to stitch all of this together. You have to look at where you're exposed and how are you going to close that gap. And sometimes just the way incidences have taken place or the things that people have said, sometimes you'll never be able to stitch that hole completely shut. And you're just going to have to work through it. But if you are vigilant more often than not, then yes, in fact, you can do that. And, that's where it saves the company money. It saves the employee money. It saves you like 12 years off of your life, because if you've ever had to go through a lawsuit, you age really quickly.
Lawsuits are not like on television where they're wrapped up in 1 week. I mean, we're talking years, years. A simple lawsuit can go on for years, absolutely years. And it will suck the lifeblood out of you, even if you win. Nobody walks out of a lawsuit unchanged. That's just, it's not how it works. And so you want to be, as Brenda so eloquently put it, having your backside covered.
It was HR neutral.
It was. You do want to make sure that that is the case. You don't want to make anything up ever, because that is the kind of thing that gets you into trouble. And it is true that people panic. People panic. They don't know what to do, and they feel like they're getting called back to the principal's office when they were in 6th grade, and perhaps got in trouble for being obnoxious on the bus trip for the school orchestra. Not a real story. Right. and so there's this panicking thing, but don't panic. Be honest. And you know what? If you screwed up, then pick up the phone, call your employment attorney and say, what do we need to do to make this right? And they can help you for a fee, but you know what it's going to be? A lot less than landing in court.
Yep.
And they would much rather that you call before you do something that is unfixable.
Yep.
Is
exactly.
unfixable.
And there's a like most good companies or leaders or even you yourself as HR folks, because our shows are no longer just about the HR people. It's about everybody in business and leadership, because let's face it, this stuff isn't easy. I mean, it's complicated and hard. It's hard and it rides on your nerves, and it gets in your way of doing the things that either A, you want to do, or B, the things that you need to do to move your business forward, right? You all are on it. It's like, imagine a Viking ship, right? And there's no wind, and you guys all have to stick out those big long oars. Everybody has to paddle, and it's hard, right? Those suckers are heavy, right? That's just the normal operation of moving the ship forward. Imagine what happens when all of a sudden somebody says, we're just going to throw this big old honking iron anchor over the back and just watch everybody, now watch them go, right? That's the reality of what we're up against. And so owning the mistake is actually way better, because it gives you an opportunity to fix it so you never get to do it before. And yes, there are companies that don't do that. But you know what? Here's the thing to keep in mind, that if you did screw up, and you start talking to, like a coach or a mentor, like one of us, then guess what happens? Nobody's going to judge you on this side of the courtroom doors. Our like employment attorneys, don't let that ego thing, jump up and trip you, because
Yes.
that's not what we're here for. We're here to help people work through that situation. And so when it comes to you guys dealing with your leaders, and they have that, you can tell that, look, let's face it, a lot of leaders are male. And when something like this happens, they get upset about the situation, but deep down, and this is a little secret for you guys, they also get a little embarrassed by it, because they in their minds, they should have known better. Like, oh crap, how much is this going to cost me now? That's literally like the first thing that goes to their mind. You know what? Make this a no judgment zone for them.
Yes, and please keep in mind when you're going to your HR or to your HR consultant or to your employment attorney, there's not really anything we haven't heard before. So there isn't a matter of don't tell us that, or my employment attorney is going to think less of me. Your employment attorney has handled much worse before. And this is how they make their money, is when you screw up. So they're happy to have you screw up.
It's gonna happen.
And there are people that you should never lie to. Your priest, your doctor, and your attorney. And all three of those people are bound by legislation to keep things quiet and keep them between the two of you, except in rare conditions when they have to speak up, but those are very rare. So be freaking honest. Just be honest, and they will not, the they means their employment attorney. I'm not telling you to go get employment advice from your priest or your doctor.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
That's really bad.
That's really bad.
Really, really bad.
But your employment attorney will have that employee, that client attorney confidentiality. So be honest and say, like, this is where we screwed up. This is what we did, and let them help walk you through it if it's in a situation where you fear that you're going to be sued. And sometimes, you're going to be sued. And here's the other secret. Anybody can file a lawsuit, but not anybody can win one. And so if you do get sued and you didn't do anything wrong, take a deep breath and direct everybody to your employment attorney and let them handle it. And most of those things do go away, but those that don't are a pain in the patootie and can potentially be very, very, very expensive.
But and even like, look, not every court situation actually goes to court.
No, most
not every complaint actually makes it into court. Not every complaint actually wins, right? Sometimes, and first off, there is also, and we're not saying this to scare people, and this is where we kind of tend to belabor this point a little bit, only because we've either experienced it or we've worked with people who have experienced. But the thing is that there is a high cost in just responding to a claim. And you know what? That's the cost of doing business. That is the nature of being an employer. It's going to happen, or the likelihood of it going to happen is prevalent on a baseline for everybody. The minute you become an employer, the minute you start bringing W-2 employees in, welcome to the club. We don't have a secret handshake, right? You're just going to be part of it. But on the flip side of it is, the more preventative you are as a company, the less you have to worry about that. Now, you guys that are listening to us right now are more on the HR side than you are on the business leadership side, which is great. But this is where you have to be able to learn how to sell this to your leaders.
Right.
And you have to demonstrate how doing preventative maintenance in HR saves your company money, which in the long run, honestly, not only does it save it, but it actually earns your organization funds to do more.
It really, really, really is worth it. I mean, one of the things, when I spent 3, 4 years doing layoffs for a very large pharma company, and we checked everything every which way from Tuesday. You know, we looked at age, we looked at gender, we looked at race, we looked at time and job, we looked at every possible thing. And yes, that took up time. Yes, it took up attorney time as well. There were some things that even though we had in-house counsel, that we sent it to outside counsel for a double check, but we made sure in doing that preventatively in those, 3, 4 years that I did that, we never landed in court from those terminations. And I terminated over 4,000 people. It was a big pharma company, and pharma goes up and down and up and down. That's normal for pharma, by the way. But part of that is that we dotted every I and crossed every T long before we notified an employee that their position was eliminated. We made sure that we were following the law, we were being consistent, and we were being fair. And the time it took us to do that is less than losing one lawsuit or fighting one lawsuit. There were plenty of people that, went to a lawyer, and lawyers sent letters, but they never went anywhere, because lawyers are willing to do just about anything. They don't generally do it for free in employment cases, but they were perfectly, we got the letter, responded, and then that was it. And then at that point, the attorneys were like, well, just telling their clients, please go ahead and sign that general release and collect your severance payment, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Like, this is a good deal. But part of that was our due diligence before anything happened. Everything was documented. And we made sure that we were following the law.
Yeah. And that's the right kind of investment in a business right there, because the return is not making more money. It's not having to separate from some more, right?
Right.
Having to terminate employees is never a fun thing. It never is. And going through the process that Suzanne is talking about, when you have a RIF or you have a layoff, that is a good investment in the organization. And here's the reason why. People are less upset when the termination is clean. Nobody likes to get fired. Nobody likes to lose their welfare and lose their ability to, really care for their life. But people tend to be less upset about it, meaning they're less motivated to come after you if the termination is clean. And if you made a hiring mistake, how you handle it before you separate is going to make the difference between possibly getting served with a notice or a charge from the EEOC, and actually, you can now just take somebody to court. You don't even have to go through the EEOC process, right? That's a real thing. But when it's clean, they are less motivated to actually take that action. And when they do wind up talking to their legal counsel about, hey, look, my company is wanting to do this, blah, blah, blah. When the attorney actually sees something cleaner, they know that they're not going to have a position to argue against, and will likely, like Suzanne said, likely go ahead and advise the employer to stop. Just like, look, this is a fair deal. There's nothing that I'm going to be able to get from. And I put somebody with zero resources through the arduous, long drawn out process just to lose a case. They're just not going to do that.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
No, they're not. And another thing to keep in mind, like Brenda said, you want people to feel like they're treated fairly. I'm constantly seeing companies that are trying to come up with try to force people to resign, or to say that they're firing someone for cause when they aren't, so that they don't have to pay unemployment. If you do that, you are asking for a lawsuit. That's just what you're doing. You're asking for one because the employee leaves and they're mad and they go to file for unemployment and they're denied and then they're extra mad. And that's when they call up an attorney. And the other thing is if you're that kind of pond scum that is creating documentation of things that didn't happen to prevent someone from getting unemployment, that's the kind of case that employment attorneys love to get their little hands on, because you're obviously not on the up and up. Why did you terminate this person? Why did you demand that they resign? And those things are far more expensive than just taking the hit on unemployment. Who wants to pay unemployment? Nobody, but that's a cost of doing business. And your foremost goal when you terminate someone is to have them go away and never bother you again.
Yep.
And
And
one of the ways you do that,
not honest about it, and if you are slimy about it, guess what? Karma is a boomerang bitch. Suzanne doesn't swear, I do, just saying. And so I'm the one that's allowed to do the periodic HR not neutral moments. But listen, it will come around, it'll loop around, and it will eventually smack you in the back of the head. And I don't believe that we've got people here really that are like that, but we know it to happen. Absolutely, we know it to happen. So it's just kind of one of those things. So
yeah, it's just one of those things, and you just need to be prepared for it. You want to be honest. You never want to make anything up. You want to treat your employees as Brenda used the word clean. You want to have your terminations be clean. You want to have your hiring be clean too. We didn't talk about it here, but failure to hire lawsuits are a thing. They're rare because it's really hard to prove. But again, if you're doing sloppy work, that leaves you open. And just one hint on this: don't let hiring managers make verbal offers during the interviews unless they are the one and only person making the decision, because you want to make sure that everybody's I's are dotted and everybody that's involved in the hiring decision has talked about it, because if you make an offer to someone verbally in the interview and then you have to yank that back, that's what lands you in trouble.
It all depends on how you do it too. I mean,
again, it depends. If you're the person that has the absolute hiring decision authority, fine. But when there's a whole team that's involved in that decision and you make it on your own, it can really cause problems.
That's the differentiator right there.
Yeah. So if you're a small business owner, you own the business and you like this person in the interview, go ahead. Make the offer contingent on the background check. Always make it contingent on that. Even if you don't actually want to run a background check, say that it's contingent on the background check. You should run a background check. Some companies don't, though.
Well, you know what? Look, you bring up a really good point, and I want to go down this road just a little bit. So, when you talk about having to rescind an offer, it reminded me, like I'm sitting here listening to her and my brain just starts going. And it reminded me of a time where this is where I worked for a very large Fortune 500 company. And we were on the verge of actually hiring somebody. We did extend an offer. And then we got the news from the head shed, from finance, saying that all hiring is at a freeze.
Yeah.
No one is permitted to move forward with any step of the process. And it went on long enough to the point where we actually had to rescind offers. And granted, it, it was across the board, but you can rescind an offer. Now, so here's the thing. If you rescind an offer, it doesn't take you off the risk table. Right. But again, people are less motivated to do something if it's clean. And in this case, it was very clearly communicated that, listen, we know that we've extended this offer. However, due to current financial and business conditions, we unfortunately and regrettably have to rescind it. However, when we are clear from this situation, we would like to resume a conversation with you if that is amenable to you. Right. So there is a way of doing it. And I don't know why I just suddenly popped. I haven't thought about that. And oh my gosh, what year is it? I haven't thought about it since we ran into it. Like it was like, what, 2013, 2014 when we had to do that, something like that. Oh my gosh, it feels like yesterday, but it's just like, whew, that was a while ago. And so, again, it's just because you write it down doesn't mean that you're protected. But the cleaner you are about the situation, the likelihood of you actually having to go through the long-term financial pain, the long-term aging process of dealing with something is less likely.
And it just comes down to one of my general principles, and that is sunlight is good for everybody.
Love that.
If it
awesome.
bleaches your laundry, it helps you find lost things, and it keeps you honest. Be open, honest. Yes, there's a difference between keeping some necessary things confidential and keeping them hidden underneath,
Kills bacteria.
That's right. Keeping them in that back room.
Yeah.
It's just really important to do that.
Yes. Love it. So, all right. So let's do this here real quick. Let's talk about what's going on in your group.
Oh, goodness. In my group, which is Evil HR Lady on Facebook, we are just about to 9,000 members, which is crazy pants. We got a whole bunch that joined us over Thanksgiving, which makes me feel happy that people like HR more than turkey. Which of course they should. And so we just added a couple of new moderators who are kindly souls who have now committed their lives
to the Evil HR Lady.
Evil HR Lady. But
right.
if you want to join and become that person that pushes us to 9,000, that would be amazing. And we're talking about all things HR. And since a lot of these vaccine mandates have been struck down, we're talking about fewer and fewer vaccine questions, which makes us happy.
Yes, that's why we're celebrating. It's not that we want to, we're not
taking sides on the mandates. No, we're just saying we don't want to implement them.
Yeah, but that's the thing is it's like, the regulation means that the government is not in anyone's way. I mean, listen, it's a hard situation. There's no easy answers around it. And unfortunately, people are losing their livelihoods, and that's not good for anyone, right? But at the same time, we also recognize and want to make sure that people are in fact healthy, they're cared for, and whatever we can do to help get everybody through this to the other end where COVID is no longer a discussion in our daily lives. We are all for that. So, we just encourage you guys to be healthy, be safe. We'll get to herd immunity soon enough, and then this will start going away, which will be really wonderful. But anyway, we're happy to see that things are moving forward, that companies are not as stressed out about it. You're not stressed out about it as much. There's still work to do. There's still, we're not work to do means we're on the back burner right now, just kind of waiting to see how this plays out in the courts. It's a waiting game and it's a little frustrating, but you know what? We'll start getting more answers, and then that way we can all figure out how to move forward in the long run. And that's what we're excited about.
That's right.
Is understanding how do we move forward, and we're not faced with a mountain and a tsunami of ambiguity and yeah buts and what ifs and questions and this is killing us and this is hurting our business, and who pays for testing, who pays for blah 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 blah, and why is it so expensive? And right, we can now start walking away from that, and that's ultimately what we're happy about.
That is absolutely the case. That is absolutely the case. And so Brenda, what's up with your group besides your fabulous new app?
Oh, the app is so much fun. I am so excited about it. There's going to be a lot more stuff that's coming down on a regular basis, including this, which we are now converting into a podcast as well. So yes, we do have the videos. Yes, we have the videos that are going to be up on YouTube. as always, but we are now converting this over to a podcast, which we will host. It'll be out on the internet as well, but it will also be in the palm of your hand when you download the Brenda the HR 80 Lab. So we just launched that yesterday, which will be really great. What's going on in the group? So today is day 2 of the 31-day challenge in December. This month it is a Christmas, it is totally 100% Christmas and gratitude generated challenge. And if you want to have some fun, get to know other HR people, get inspired by what other people do. If you just need a pick me up, this is going to be really great. The graphics are awesome. I absolutely love it. My social media person who puts all my graphics together, she did a fantastic job. The little hint secret, it does feature a very beloved movie character. So if you're curious about that, go ahead and check them out, because the graphics are just, I'm absolutely in love with them. She did such a tremendous job. So it almost makes me excited for next year's 31-day challenge, because I know who I want on there next year. But anyway, so we are doing that. We're engaged in that at the end of the 31 days. If you post everything, you follow all the instructions, there's 2 things that come about of it. And the first one is that you accomplish something, right? And it'll make you feel good that you accomplished something. It gives you a chance to express yourself, because let's face it, we don't necessarily get the capacity to do that at work, because it's not about us, it's everybody else.
Right.
So this is just for us, right? And it believe it or not, when you post what you enjoy and what you're grateful for, it does change your brain chemistry. It helps you fight off the blues. It helps you fight off depression, helps keep your spirits up, gives you something to look forward to. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's for. But we also do give a little reward at the end, and everybody who participates and follows through and does all the postings every day as part of the challenge will be put into a pot, this time to get $100 gift card. And last month we gave away a Coach handbag, a Coach tote. So these little giveaways tend to be a little on the juicy side. And of course, when I give something away, I give away the basics, and then I add a little bit more to it as a surprise. So you never know what you're going to get from me. So you never know what Brenda's little elves are going to ship off to you if you are the lucky winner. So with that being said, we'll just let that sit there. Unfortunately, the first time I did it, the post office lost the package, and it was like over $500 with the merchandise. And I had to go through a 72-day waiting period to get reimbursed by the post office in the claim, and wound up sending that person literally like a $500 gift card. So anyway, I know. So
anyway,
that was a little nuts.
We are going to wrap up the video portion of our show, but now we are going to, those of you on Clubhouse, if you want to raise your hand and come up.
Yep. But before we close the video down, if you want to jump on the app, listen, because you'll get access to some of Suzanne's stuff as well as mine. It is just go to BrendaTheHRLady.com, or you can find the app on Apple and Google Play in the app stores, and it's just Brenda the HR.
Excellent.
Now you can shut the
All right. We will see you on the video show next week.